And let's start by telling you that gunmen, reportedly led by the notorious bandit leader, Danny Sihu, have allegedly imposed a 172.7 million naira levy on 25 villages in Tafe, West Zamfara State. Counter-insurgency expert Zagazulu Makama disclosed on his official X account that the levies include demands for bags of soybeans and threats of violence against those unable to comply. Fearing reprisals, hundreds of residents have abandoned their homes, farmlands and livelihoods. While security has reportedly improved in Tafe town and along the Fontua-Tafe axis, rural villages in Tafe West remain vulnerable to attacks. Local leaders have appealed to authorities for urgent intervention, calling for the deployment of more security personnel and the establishment of permanent security posts, in the area to maintain the affected, to protect the affected communities. And now to discuss this, we're joined by security expert Darlington Umoru. Darlington, many thanks for doing this with us. Let's just get started. I mean, what allows bandits to carry out their attacks with such impunity, and how can this be addressed?
Bandits in the Northwest, of course, you know their activities over time. They've recorded some measure of successes over time, and they've been able to make huge monies from this nefarious and criminal activity. You know, they have had for a couple of years now. Give it to them, Zamfara has been the hub of banditry activities in Nigeria, particularly up north. It has been the center of kidnapping activity in the Northwest. They've tried a series of things over time. They've made attempts to kidnap school children. They've kidnapped farmers. They've also even killed some. They've also even attempted kidnapping some security agents over time, and now the gods is getting higher and bigger. They are placing. It's shocking at the level they have gone to now, and that they are asking a ransom from villagers in villages. 25 villages, you know, put together in Zamfara State. It's no mean measure. But good enough, the Nigerian security agents and the military are up to the task. Attention, they are on the joint board now. Attention is focused on these areas to see how these persons in these villages can be protected. But whether these persons will be protected by security agents and the military, whether they themselves, these villagers have confidence in the Nigerian security arrangement is another kettle of fish. But as we speak now, the story making the round is that most of them are deserting the villages for fear of what could happen to them, particularly when they have to refer to antecedents they have had over time. Right. But it's not going to be an easy one for the bandit, right? Who are making such huge demands, you know, from several communities, several villages. It's definitely not going to be easy for them to achieve.
Darlington, I must ask you about, you know, we just talked about the villages, 25 villages, and the fact that these villages are being held hostage by bandits suggests somewhat of a significant failure in our security system. And so I have to ask you about intelligence and, you know, and data gathering and just having ears on the ground for our security outfit. Have they failed in that aspect in terms of intelligence?
Can you take that question again, please? I didn't quite hear you very well.
I was asking about the fact that the entire villages are being held hostage by bandits, and how much this suggests a significant failure, you know, in our security. Is this due to ungoverned spaces or just an inadequate intelligence gathering on the part of security agencies?
No. That's not it. It's not about the adequacy of intel or not. The situation is that bandits, of course, you know, the year is fresh. They also want to do something that will make government quickly say, oh, we know you are there. And then they also want to, as much as possible, see how they can create some scare. And then also whether people will out of fear, begin to make those payments to them. It's not just payment now, they're also talking about foodstuff. They also need some foodstuff for survival. But like I say, the military, of course, at this point in time, particularly when this report was released by a media organization, the military apparently will be doing everything now they could to see how they will be able to secure these communities. Of course, intel is very important, and they will be doing everything. Aside from wanting to reprimand the leader of this group, they will also want to give some measure of confidence to the people, the villagers, particularly who have deserted not just their homes, they have also deserted farmlands. Of course, this is the season for planting also in some parts of the country. And so the military will be providing adequate security beyond going after him. I know right now there are things we are not supposed to say, but I'm sure that right now they will be trying to go after him to reprimand him and his men, and then give some measure of support to these villagers.
Right. So, I mean, given the ongoing issues with the terrorist-controlled territories and the recent bandit attacks, the question has to be asked about how far from overcoming our security. How far are we, from overcoming our security challenges?
I'm struggling to hear you, please. That's the challenge I have here now. Could you take that again?
I think we'll come back to this conversation when we try to fix the audio. But I was talking about the issues with the terrorist-controlled territories, right? The villages, we have issues with terrorists and insurgencies and bandits. The question is, are we far from overcoming our security challenges for Nigeria?
We'll be far from it. We have had this, over time, for the past 1 year or thereabout, we have had or seen a series of improvements in terms of security, particularly in the north and the north central, northwest, and northeast. That experiences different forms of insecurity challenges. Northeast, for instance, the situation has almost died down, even though not completely. Sometimes they still want to rear their heads. You saw what the governor of Borno State did for the Yellow Tide when they talked about beefing up security in the northeast, in Borno and some other states in the northeast, to ensure that the people are able to celebrate the Yellow Tide in peace. And then down to the northwest, where the situation is about banditry and not pure terrorism. You also have seen that what we used to experience in the past, we've also had some measure of calmness. Aside from pockets of kidnapping activities that have been recorded over time. But the truth is that there's been so much improvement in terms of security. What about North Central too? North Central, we still have pockets of them, but not as ravaging as they used to be in the past. And so for anybody who would want to, look at it, you draw comparison between what you have had in the past years and what we are seeing today. The situation apparently has improved so much in terms of security. And so the issue of Lukarawa started in the northwest, also Sokoto and Kebbi recently, and then as at this moment, you are sure to also quickly say that there's an improvement in terms of arresting the Lukarawa group, that came up, that emerged recently, that are said to be dominating Sokoto and Kebbi states. Zamfara State, we know over time, has had records of bandit activities. And the military has also been able to intervene and minimize a lot of activity. But let me also quickly say that on Saturday, what do you call him now? What's his name now? The leader of Mayati Allah group in Katsina State was taken out by bandits. Even though he was serving as acting chairman, in the capacity of acting chairman of the state Mayati Allah chapter. And then his predecessor, up until today, nobody is able to tell what has happened to him on a trip he embarked upon that was taking him to Kaduna from Katsina. So all of that are activities that are going on. They are asking for so much money. They are putting fear. They have put a lot of fear in those in the hearts of those villagers, and so the villagers are also now on a way of leaving their villages to find succor in some other places. But I'm sure in the shortest possible time, the situation will come back to normal, and they will all be able to return to their deserted homes and families.
Well, I must say thank you, Darlington, for taking out the time to discuss with us regarding security. Once again, thanks.
My pleasure being here.
Darlington Umoru, the security experts. We're still on security matters. Terrorists linked to the Islamic State West Africa province have killed 6 soldiers in an attack on a military base in northeast Nigeria. Military sources revealed that ISWAP fighters stormed the Sabon Gari base in Borno State's Damboa district early on Sunday, arriving in trucks and on motorcycles. The attackers set the base and army vehicles ablaze, forcing troops to retreat. Fighter jets were deployed from Maiduguri, the regional capital, located about 100 kilometers away, and struck the militants as they fled. Nigeria's northeast has been a hotspot for insurgencies since 2009, with groups like Boko Haram, ISWAP, and armed criminal gangs contributing to widespread violence. The conflict has claimed over 40,000 lives and displaced around 2 million people in the region. The Sokoto state government has expressed condolences and pledged support to the victims of the recent fire outbreak at the Kara Market's Karanyanika area. The inferno, which destroyed over 50 shops, 132 grinding machines, and large quantities of foodstuffs such as rice, millet, and beans, caused losses amounting to millions of naira. Deputy Governor Idris Gobir visited the scene to sympathize with those affected and announced the formation of a committee to assess the damage and recommend preventative measures. Gobir assured the victims of prompt government interventions once the committee submits its report. The fire has significantly impacted both local and non-local traders, many of whom depend on the market for their livelihoods. And welcome back. The Nigeria police have paraded without about 50 suspected vandals bordering on the theft of manhole covers and other public infrastructure within the Federal Capital Territory. The FCT Commissioner of Police, Olatunji Drisu, made this known during the parade of the suspects in Abuja, saying that several manhole covers, vehicles, solar street lights, and rods used in the construction of flyovers were being targeted by the suspects, saying that their actions pose serious risks to public safety.
Our operatives conducted targeted operations leading to arrest of 50 suspects and recovery of 25 manhole covers. They are there for you to see. 3 vehicles have been recovered from these suspects. We have also recovered vandalized solar lights, galvanized rods used in construction of flyovers, and other tools used in vandalizing these government installations, and several other exhibits at various Pantika hotspots like in Kabusa, Gariki, Mabushi, and Wuse. Investigations have revealed that these individuals operate as part of a larger network.
And survivors of the devastating tanker inferno that occurred in Agbo Ika South local government area of Delta State continue to assess their losses. The Delta State government has pledged to support victims of the disaster and their families. The deputy governor of the state, Monday Onyema, who represented the governor, disclosed this to journalists shortly after inspecting the scene of the event in Agbo. The incident happened when a diesel-laden tanker suffered a brake failure and fell along the old Lagos-Asaba road at Traffic Light Junction, Aba, causing an explosion. Agbo, I beg your pardon, causing an explosion that killed at least 4 people and injured others. Several vehicles and houses were also burnt in the fire.
Facilities and machines and facilities worth over 40 million naira. I know there are several other persons and neighbors and their friends here. People are lamenting, and especially this is just the beginning of the year. and all that. So we are appealing to the government. They can also come and they render assistance they can render, because it's very difficult starting a business in this country and then you are built to an extent and then you just discover that everything is engulfed in fire. And
now the cash now they cry for. Not be the goose when see here now my major store. Now the goose my raw cash when they here now they cry for. Not be the goose. If I get the raw my raw cash, as this thing happen now, I go say, hey, make I hold the cash, take establish. Now goods finish. Raw cash finish. Since when Onitsha closed down for the year, the whole money when they sell, they secure them. Say based on today, we carry money go bank. Now what we are here yesterday, say has won.
You know, to see by myself and have a first-hand information about the sad incident. Now we are here, we've seen the damages, and we're going to report back to His Excellency the Governor. Everything. I've directed the chairman, I've directed the commissioners, environment and health, to come and also do their own assessment. The people that their shops are affected and their buildings are affected, we also profile all of them. And then the government will see what it can do. Definitely, we're not going to let the people just be on their own. The government is going to come to their aid in the best way that we can come in as a government. Because a disaster is an accident. And so when your brother or your sister is in pain, it is your duty as a fellow citizen, as a government, to come to their aid, which this government.
Let's also tell you that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has been indicted for alleged misappropriation of funds and revenue diversion in the 2021 Attorney General's annual report. The 558-page report published in November 2024 and submitted to the National Assembly shows significant financial irregularities within the state-owned oil company. One of the key findings highlights unauthorized deduction of 82.9 billion naira from Federation revenue purportedly for refinery rehabilitation. The Attorney General further criticized NNPCL for irregular deductions from domestic crude sales at source, and a practice flagged as a violation of the Nigerian Constitution and financial regulations of 2009, which emphasize the prudent management of public resources. The report underscores deep concerns about financial accountability within the NNPCL, calling for urgent reforms to address these issues. The National Assembly is expected to deliberate on the findings in the coming weeks. Polytechnic graduates in Lagos demonstrated at the National Youth Service Corps Secretariat over NYSC's policy that stops part-time Polytechnic graduates and participating in the one-year compulsory NYSC scheme. The students believe this particular policy from NYSC will only worsen the dichotomy between bachelor's degree and higher national diploma HND certificates in Nigeria, especially within the nation's civil service. News Central's Omolola Ololade tells us more in this report.
Chanting solidarity songs in front of the National Youth Service Corps Secretariat in Surulere area of Lagos are members of the Polytechnic Graduate Association, voicing their frustrations over the long-standing disparity in opportunities afforded to higher national diploma holders compared to university degree holders. The protest aims to bring attention to the clause given by NYSC, which denies part-time Polytechnic graduates from participating in the one-year compulsory service year.
We just plea for the federal government, the Ministry of Education, Honorable Lawasa, should please help us look into this matter, because it's not fair at all. I mean, And I don't want to use the word is illogical, because how on earth will I do ND part-time and HND full-time? You are now judging my service by my ND part-time.
Therefore, stakeholders in the education sector condemned the clause by NYSC while emphasizing it as a denial of the students' rights.
Demand from the ERC is simple. They merit it, they suffer for it, they labor for it. What should have been their rights, and yet they are still being denied.
After a few hours of demonstrating, a representative of NYSC addressed the protesters, commending them for a peaceful protest while assuring them of a positive feedback from higher authorities.
We've taken it into consideration to convey your grievance to the highest level of management in NYSC, and that is Director General at the National Directorate Headquarters. And as I'm talking to you now, your protests, your grievances have been conveyed, and the matter is being looked into. And I want you to please exercise calmness, patience, to be able to wait for the outcome.
The protesters hope that NYSC will listen to their grievances and return with the positive feedback, as they give a 48 hours ultimatum to return if their demands are not met. In Lagos for News Central, I am Omolola Ololade.
The federal government says it would activate surveillance measures for inbound passengers from China following the current surge of a respiratory virus. Reports indicate that the virus has led to overcrowded hospitals, emergency measures, and public concerns in China. The virus, known as the human metanymphovirus has caused a spike in cases this winter in northern Chinese province, especially in youngsters. According to reports, neighboring nations, including Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Cambodia, are keeping a careful eye on the HMPV situation. They have recorded a few cases, but no significant outbreaks. And you're welcome back. And off to the west of the continent, where security forces were deployed across Guinea's capital on Monday following the military-led government's ban on the planned opposition protests against the ruling junta. The protest, organized by the opposition coalition Leaving Forces of Guinea, aimed to pressure the junta, which seized power in a 2021 coup to transfer authority to a civilian government. Authorities announced the ban late on Sunday, citing a lack of prior notification. On Monday, armed men, some in vehicles linked to security forces, were seen dispersing gatherings and instructing residents to return home. Protests in Guinea are frequently banned by the authorities and often escalate into deadly violence, underscoring the tension between the junta and opposition groups in the West African nation. And on to in the east of the continent, where local media and rights groups say 4 young Kenyan men who vanished last month in a series of abductions targeting government critics have been freed. The disappearances, which have dominated headlines and political discourse, are part of a troubling trend. At least 6 young people went missing over the Christmas holidays, with reports suggesting that 2 were abducted after posting AI-generated images depicting President William Ruto in a coffin. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has documented 82 cases of abduction since youth-led protests against proposed tax hikes erupted in June last year. Of these, 29 individuals remain unaccounted for. Now, the protests, triggered by economic frustrations, have created the most significant political crisis since Ruto assumed office in 2022, raising concerns over human rights and state accountability in Kenya. And we'll move away from Kenya now, as the United Nations says over 30 million people in Sudan, and more than half of them being children, are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance following 20 months of devastating war. Sudan has been ravaged by a brutal conflict between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces since April of 2023, leaving tens of thousands dead and pushing the nation to the brink of famine. The war has displaced more than 8 million people internally, creating the world's largest internal displacement crisis. Now, in response, the UN has launched a $4.2 billion appeal to target 20.9 million people from the 30.4 million affected by what is now described as an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. The UN continues to call for global support to address the escalating humanitarian disaster. And finally, to the south of the continent, every festive season, the heart of South Africa beats louder than ever, inviting adventurers and dreamers alike to explore its hidden gems. For the hardworking journalists who report on its beauty year-round, the Limpopo Tourism Agency gifted them a thrilling retreat, a chance to discover the soul of South Africa beyond the headlines. And News Central's Bongani Ziziba takes us to what makes Limpopo province very thick. Take a look.
The journey began at the Echo Caves. Rich stories of the Pedi people unfolds. Here in ancient shadows, the whispers of history echoes, a sanctuary where warriors once sought refuge from the conflict, a reminder that the past is forever intertwined with the present.
The guy who found this cave, it was a farmer actually. He was searching for lost cattle. He rediscovered Echo Caves in 1923. They opened it for public in 1959. And later he discovered another section, it's called Madonna. So he was searching for a source of water. He discovered Madonna in 1981.
It's the caves, because I learned a lot there, and it was very interesting seeing how people lived long before cities came and cars came. It was really cool.
Deep within South Africa's history lies the tale of the Bushmen, the original guardians of the land. Their stories are still vibrant in museums today, teaching the young generation about resilience and the wisdom of nature. A town like this isn't merely sightseeing, it's an education wrapped in the beauty of heritage. What would a holiday be without soothing embrace of water on the Kambuki Sunset Boat Cruise? These journalists left behind their daily hustle, their hearts racing as they witnessed majestic rhinos and playful water creatures. Here laughter replaces deadline and nature paints a perfect postcard.
The boat cruise was so much fun to me as we were watching the sunset while he's cruising in the waters of Palabura.
It was very lovely seeing the animals, seeing one of the big fives. Apparently there's more than that, and unlucky for us, we never got to see that.
Then came the exhilarating rush of the zipline, a whirlwind of anticipation and thrill, where fears are shed like leaves in the wind. For these media maestros, it's a reminder that their own stories need a touch of fun and adventure, just as they inspire others to live fully.
The zip lining was the best for me. Even though I did it twice, I just can't get over it.
The journey culminated at the Mapungubwe Festival, bringing life and culture, the vibrant rhythm of Tsonga dancers, celebrating not just a season, but a legacy that defines a people.
And that is the pride, which for us as a province, we utilize this Mapungubwe Festival, which brings all artists together, different types of music, catering for the young. You would have your amapianos, you'll have the jazz, you'll have the gospel, you'll have all the type of music.
Like where we are now, you can see it's a very beautiful festival. We are able to put culture and heritage forward.
For these journalists, it was more than just a trip. It was a heartwarming treat of connection, culture, and creation. In these moments, away from the glare of the screens, they found inspiration. As the night unfolds, so too does the promise of stories yet to be told. South Africa unveiled its treasures not just to the world, but to those who share its tales. Here, where history, adventure, and culture collide, the spirit of the season is alive, a joyous reminder that every destination tells a story, and every journalist carries a piece of that spirit forward. In Limpopo, for News Central, Wangani Siziba.
And you're welcome back. In a surprise move, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced his resignation on Monday. Trudeau, who has been in power since 2015, stated he will leave office as soon as the ruling Liberal Party chooses a new leader. Trudeau's resignation comes after a protracted political crisis that saw top Liberal allies urge him to quit. The Prime Minister made the announcement to reporters in Ottawa, marking a significant shift in Canadian politics. And Australia's president, Alexander von der Bellen, has made a historic decision by appointing a far-right leader, Herbert Kick, to form a government. Now, this follows the collapse of coalition talks between the Conservatives, Social Democrats and Liberals. The Freedom Party of Australia, led by Kick, secured nearly 29% of the vote in September's national election, marking a first for the party. Now, the president met with him and expressed confidence in his ability to find viable solutions. Now, he's now set to engage in discussions with the Conservative Party to form a federal government. And away from that, and now to the UK, where the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has condemned Elon Musk for spreading misinformation regarding historical child rape cases in northern England. Starmer declared that, quote, a line has been drawn or crossed, end quote, and accused Musk of acting in self-interest. The Prime Minister's remarks followed a speech in which he focused on reducing NHS waiting times, a key priority for his government. Starmer stressed that those who spread falsehoods and misinformation are not advocating for victims, but instead seeking to further their own agendas.
That are spreading lies and misinformation as far and as wide as possible. They're not interested in victims. They're interested in themselves. Those who are cheerleading Tommy Robinson, not interested in justice. They're supporting a man who went to prison for nearly collapsing a grooming case, a gang grooming case. These are people who are trying to get some kind of vicarious thrill from street violence that people like Tommy Robinson promote. And those attacking Jess Phillips, who I'm proud to call a colleague and a friend, not protecting victims. Jess Phillips has done 1,000 times more than they've even dreamt about when it comes to protecting victims of sexual abuse throughout her entire career.
The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, has affirmed that the current value-added tax structure can remain unchanged amid ongoing controversies. Oyedele addressed some of the concerns surrounding tax reforms in a chat with newsmen. The tax reform bills aims to overhaul Nigeria's tax system, consolidate tax laws, streamline tax administration, and enhance revenue generation. Oyedele emphasized that the VAT adjustments they are non-negotiable for Nigeria's development, but assured flexibility in implementation. He warned that withdrawing the bills from the National Assembly could hinder progress and disrupt ongoing consultations, stressing the urgent need to address inequalities in the current system. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has introduced the idea of National Credit Guarantee Company aimed at tackling the significant funding shortfall for small businesses, which play a crucial role in the country's economy. Numerous small enterprises face challenges in obtaining credit due to insufficient collateral, with banks hesitant to lend and informal lenders imposing steep interest rates. Now, this initiative seeks to address Nigeria's $160 billion MSME credit gap and is anticipated to enhance job creation, productivity, and innovation by unlocking economic opportunities, as noted by experts from the International Finance Corporation, IFC. Basil Abia, the co-founder of VIRAV Africa, shared his thoughts on this topic during a segment on Business Edge.
Risk-sharing instruments to financial institutions who are bringing in liquidity. And by this, I mean that because the government wants to ensure an extension of credit, especially to certain sectors that are hitherto seen as high risk. So, for instance, MSMEs, as you mentioned, MSMEs have a huge financing gap, especially due to the fact that lending to them is really risky, deemed risky by the financial institutions. So this credit guarantee system has a mechanism where they're sharing the risks via the instruments that they provide.
Aqua United Football Club has agreed a mid-season managerial contract with coach Kennedy Boboye, set to resume work later this week. The club chairman, Paul Bassi, called Boboye's return necessary, citing his impressive track record and past success with the team. Boboye led Aqua United to their first league title in 2020 and 2021 season and guided them to their CAF Champions League debut in 2021. After stepping down in 2022, Boboye had brief spells with Heartland FC and Sunshine Stars. Aqua United, who are seated 19th with 19 points, will look to Kennedy to improve the team's fortunes in the second stanza of the league. As Indonesia has now sacked South Korean coach Shin Tae-young and will unveil a new European replacement this weekend as they continue their push for 2026 World Cup qualification. Shin, who took charge in 2020, led Indonesia to the third round of qualifiers, but faced criticism following poor recent performances and communication issues. The team currently sits third in their group, with the top two advancing directly to the World Cup and third and fourth entering an additional qualifying round. The new European coach will be introduced on Sunday with a critical match against Australia in March. And also we can take at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Bandits impose 172.7 million naira levy on Zamfara villages as residents flee. Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited indicted in 2021 Attorney General's annual report. And the United Nations says over 30 million in Sudan are in need of aid. Now remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 4221, Star Times channel 274. Find us on Avo TV, or better yet, stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.